one of the reasons for India's occupational structure remaining more or less the same over the years is that the investment pattern directed towards capital intensive industries having remained more or less the same. So one of the reasons for India's occupational structure having remained more or less the same over the years is that the investment pattern has been directed towards capital intensive industries. So looking at the options A, B, C, you can quickly eliminate option B. Remaining the same or less doesn't make sense. Has remained more or less the same, but then has directed the, again, doesn't make sense. I think it should be option A, but my only problem is we're talking about over the years, right? Which means action started sometime in the past and is relevant to the present as well. So instead of is, shouldn't it be like a present perfect tense? See, one of the reasons for India's occupational structure remaining more or less the same over the years, right? It seems like the action started sometime in the past and it is bearing relevance to the present. So I would forget the context, okay? Answer has to be A, because here it makes sense for you to say that the investment pattern has been directed towards capital intensive industry. It makes sense, right? But I still, just for our learning purpose, okay, because you're talking about over the years, I would add present perfect tense. So I'll say, instead of is, I'll say has been, option A. So one of the reasons for India's occupational structure having remained more or less the same over the years has been that the investment pattern has been directed towards the capital intensive industries. Sentence improvement. Okay. Where is the itemized part? Okay, we'll figure it out. To get one's name in the Rowland Ward's book of hunting records was the hot ambition of every serious hunter. To get one's name in the Rowland Ward's book of hunting records was a hot ambition. I think the itemized part, looking at the options, extreme, burning, reluctant, are all adjectives. Rowland Ward's book of hunting records. It can't be extreme records, burning records. Okay, I think this is the itemized part, because either of these words have to describe what sort of an ambition this is. So can somebody tell me, is this the itemized part? Correct, right? So get one's name in the Rowland Ward's book of hunting records was the hot ambition of every serious hunter. So here we're talking about somebody is very hooked onto, or somebody is very, passionate about making sure that they have their name in this book of the hunting records. So having looked at it, if you're familiar, the right collocation, the adjective plus noun is, it is definitely not, the sentence is a positive. It's giving me a positive meaning. I can quickly eliminate option 3, reluctant, which is negative. Reluctant means not willing to, out. Extreme ambition or burning ambition. The collocation is burning ambition. Burning ambition meaning very intense, very, very passionate. So looking forward to something like that, right? Burning ambition, that's our collocation. So it is option 2. The next context, whatever to our other problems, we have no shortcoming to cheap labor in India, in bold or italicized or whatever. So whatever to our other problems, we have no shortcoming. What is the meaning of shortcoming? When I say shortcoming, what comes to your mind? You refer to someone's fault or failure to meet a particular standard. That's a shortcoming, right? So usually this is made reference to, someone's character, right? So this refers to a person's character, whatever their plan or a system. So shortcomings in that person, some fault, right? Or failure. So here in the context, what's the subject? Cheap labor. So shortcoming obviously is not the right one. Options: default, deficit, scarcity, no improvement needed. So they're saying, hey boss, don't worry about cheap labor when it comes to India. We have abundant, plenty of cheap labor available in India, right? all the BPO outsourcing, everything happens here. So we have no scarcity. That's our answer, right? Scarcity means shortage, short supply. So they're saying we have no short supply when it comes to cheap labor. So whatever to our other problems, we have no shortcoming to cheap labor in India. Okay. Sorry, what was that? What is the meaning of deficit? Why not deficit? Okay. When you talk about deficit, you are referring to an amount, right? You're talking about a sum of money that is too small. So in the context, is that the most effective word? No, out. Default. When you default on something, which means you can default in a payment, right? Failure. You are unable to repay some loan, or you fail to appear in court. You have defaulted, right? So obviously it cannot be default and deficit given the context that we have. And here the subject is, we're talking about cheap labor. Cheap labor, we're saying, hey, in India, there is no shortage when it comes to cheap labor. Shortage too is fine. You don't have to change the preposition to of and all. Not required at all. See, I just changed the, when it comes to cheap labor, when we're making reference to cheap labor, India does not fall short of it. Does not fall short of it. Now, is it making sense? Any questions? See guys, what you need to remember is, when you're saying, see, cheap labor or a scarcity of cheap labor is not only exclusive to India, right? There are many other places where people outsource, because cheap labor is available in other places also. When you say off, you are restricting it and saying it only belongs to, right? Possession of. Of is a preposition that expresses the meaning of possession. How means, I just put it here. When it comes to cheap labor, India does not fall short of it. You are taking the literal meaning of scarcity. You're replacing scarcity with shortage, and then you're saying, hey, let's put off, because shortage of is the right collocation, right? That's what you guys are coming back and saying. You don't have to do that, is what I'm saying. See, scarcity of cheap labor also is, I'm not denying that. In the context, it is still fine to say scarcity to cheap labor. You cannot gain the support of the local people without being cordially to them. Being cordially is the highlighted phrase. Our options are option A, being cordially for, being cordial to, C, being cordial to. So obviously, they're referring to describing how the people should be. I don't need an adverb, I need an adjective. The only adjective that is correct in the correct construction is option C. You cannot gain the support of the local people without being cordial to them. Okay, though this is the right adjective form, but being is incorrect, grammatically incorrect. So option C. Next one. When the child is being bored and not occupied is also mischievous. Okay, let's see what answer you come up with, and then I'll tell you the clue. A, is bored and unoccupied he. B, was bored and unoccupied. C, is bored and unoccupied that he. And then no improvement. I want you to pay attention to where the highlighted phrase is starting and ending, and I also want you to pay attention to this comma, right? Which means, see, always comma kind of separates two clauses, right? A complete thought. A complete thought will have what? A subject and the rest of the predicate. Verb plus whatever the sentence is, a subject, rest of the predicate, right? Which means, when the child, option A says, when the child is bored and unoccupied, comma, he is also mischievous. Makes sense. And the general tense in the context is present tense, so you can eliminate option B, which has was bored. Those who said option C, when the child is bored and unoccupied, you don't need that, no? Comma, when something is happening, something is happening. Right? So that as a, it's not even required in the context. When the child is bored and unoccupied, that he is also mischievous is an illogical sentence. Grammatically incorrect, and it doesn't make sense also. Two things describing the child, bored, unoccupied. So when this happens, what happens? He is also mischievous. So the answer is A and not C. Okay. So I don't know why some people are still coming back and giving me option C. It's basically just saying, hey, when you see a child being bored and unoccupied, right? So because he is bored and unoccupied, he also tends to be mischievous. That's the meaning the context is expressing. So there are two complete thoughts. The first complete thought is the child is bored and unoccupied. The second complete thought is he is also mischievous. That's it. When I am hungry and tired, I also get irritated. Right? It's the same construction. When I am hungry and tired, when I am hungry and tired, I am irritated. It's the same construction, right? What is wrong with the sentence? Okay, that's it, it's the same thing. When the child is bored and not occupied, he is mischievous, that's all.